and like play like this if you want.
The dark side won. There we go.
I'm Rina, Shumylo. I'm a senior play designer.
I'm Regan. I'm a senior play inventor.
Lego Smart Play adds the new dimension of interactivity to the existing Lego system in play with the Smart Brick, Smart Tag, and the Smart Minifigure.
And what does the Smart Brick bring to these Lego sets that maybe hasn't existed before?
Oh, a lot of different things. So it's bringing this new level of play, and now all the models reacting to how you're playing. So they're responding with sounds and lights. They know how you're moving them around. They have a lot of different sensors inside them, and yeah.
I'd also say it brings awareness of like other models as well. Like, for example, if I had one brick in here and one brick in there, they could have awareness of each other, where they are relative to each other. And also it allows them to communicate with each other, right? So if I shoot, she'll take damage on that one. So it brings like a new element of like interactive play to the Lego system.
So the more smart bricks you have, the more you can do with them, similar to like other Lego bricks and elements.
Yeah, I think the more bricks you write, like especially like with our BrickNet system, you know, you can have up to like 20 bricks. So you imagine right now that's a bit chaotic, but the idea is like as the system grows, we can create more experiences that scale to more and more bricks and more kids being able to, you know, play with Smart Play together.
I just love the idea that if you so desire, you could recreate the attack on the Death Star with like 19 X-Wings on one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe at the next convention we could do that, right?
That's the goal, right?
Everyone brings their Smart Brick and then they all fight each other.
So when you're developing a whole new kind of technology for Lego sets like this, what kind of foundational thinking do you have to do? And then how do you kind of test some of that out and improve some of these ideas that you have?
So for Smart Play, we were also working with core play principles for the experiences. So for example, agency is quite important. So when we're designing play experiences, we want to make sure that it's kids driven. So toy is not asking you to do anything, it's reacting to what kids are doing. Or social play. You know, it was like also a big focus for us to make sure that this new interactive play is catering not only for solo play, but kids could interact together, for example, for battle or for lightsaber duel or other things. And yeah, there was like this, you know, and R2D2 also wants to say something. Seeing kids, how they're taking the play from tables and floors to the whole room, to the whole space, and running around, being very, very active and playing together.
And I also think, you know, along this journey as well, like through kids testing, one of the design pillars that we found through that was that like kids wanted to control the universe and they want to have the control over their toys, right? Like when you look at the Smart Play system, it's like the toy responds to your actions. It's not calling you out. It's not telling you how to play. Like you really dictate the direction of how the play goes. Yeah.
And when you're creating something so sophisticated, how do you kind of, what's some of the process of simplifying it down to the point that it is that just responsive to the way that a child's going to play naturally? When obviously you can easily imagine how something like that could become over-engineered or over-complicated.
I think, to be honest, kids testing. Kids tell you what's up. They tell you the truth.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, we were working on some of the experiences with like gamification and leveling up, much more complex, you know, with the rules. But it's also like, for us, one of the important principles is to create sandbox experiences. So toys are not games. And we're also driving in that direction. So when we're testing those complex experiences, we also find out that actually you need to leave some space for kids to invent their own rules or like modify them or, you know, bend them to create like on top, you know. So if you have a very complex, strict system, then it's harder, first of all, for younger kids to play. And secondly, for kids to modify it to what they want to do.
We also say like, in toy design, one of the best toys is like a stick, because you can make so many games with a stick, right? But it's more of like the idea of like the stick is like a sandbox toy. we're kind of similar to how we're designing Smart Play. It's like it adds layers, but it's not telling you exactly how you should play, and it's still up to you what games you want to play.
If you're enjoying Rina's and Regan's insights into LEGO Smart Play, then go over to blocksmag.com and order the latest issue of Blocks magazine that has the definitive guide to LEGO Smart Play, a deep dive that takes you into what the new system is, what it does, and how it was developed. Are there any particularly memorable moments or examples from when you were doing the testing with children that stick in your mind? Are there any things that really kind of defined an idea?
A lot, I would say. Okay, there's few from my end, and Regan can also share like few. So we were testing this explorer kind of type of play, and then once kids figure out that you only need a smart tag and a smart brick, they start like mixing them and putting in different models. So they took like this creature tag and put it in the track, and they're like, oh my god, it's roaring, it's a monster truck, Or like another kid, he actually built his own little chicken, and he was like, I want to bring it to life, And when they realizing that it's really, really easy, that you only need a tile, that the model itself actually doesn't matter that much, right? So you can take a tile, and because it is system and play, oh god, I can't take it out. You can put it in any model. So yeah, he brought to life his own creation. There was so much proudness in his eyes. He was like, oh my god, now I can, kind of like create my own toys. And that's the whole point, because, with the Smart Play, we didn't want to invent something completely new. We wanted to put a layer on top of existing system and use the same core principles of LEGO Play and encourage kids to experiment and be creative and do the discovery and create their own toys.
Yeah, I think for me there's a couple. One was like a long time during prototyping, we would have sound coming from a speaker, right? Because we didn't have it coming from the brick at that point. But I think hearing the sound come from the brick for the first time was like a magical moment of like, okay, this idea is now coming to life. It feels like it's becoming a product.
Yeah.
I also think for me, one of the coolest moments is like when kids went from playing at a table to running around the room and like seeing kids really jump around, chasing each other around like the testing room. I think like seeing that for the first time was like a pretty magical moment where you're like, okay, I think we're onto something here.
You guys have kind of touched a few times on the early development and as you were coming up with things, like, could you go a bit further back and talk about those early days and what some of the experimentation was? Like, how firm was this idea of where you ended up, compared to where you started and the journey that you went on?
Well, in the beginning, we were developing and exploring play in parallel to technology, right? Because they need to work hand in hand. So we were doing quite a lot of blue sky exploration and going on different, types of play. It could be action play or nurture play or kind of like mastery play. And then we're just exploring and trying to really push the boundaries, like what else we could do. And then we're thinking about, okay, what kind of technology do we need? Is it like accelerometer? Is it the gyroscope? Is it, color sensor? Because of course we also don't want to make it so expensive and like packed with so many different kind of features, but then maybe we don't need like half of them, right? So we were rigorously exploring and trying to understand like, okay, if we have a color sensor, how much play value it will bring. So there was a lot of different kind of explorations in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think in the early stage of like a project like this, like Rina's saying, they're pushing each other. And you have to work out what is more important, right? Like, is it the cost? Is it the technology? Is it the play? And trying to kind of balance those out, and they kind of push each other a bit. But at the same time, you're kind of going out, and then you're coming back in. You're trying to work out, okay, what is the coolest play, and then what is the coolest play on this technology? So it's kind of like jumping around between those zones a lot, trying to work out, okay, where are we going with this? But I think. Yeah, a lot of different explorations, right?
Like in the beginning, we didn't have tag minifigures. So it's something that during the exploration and play, we discovered that, it will be really great to introduce also characters.
And Were there moments when the technology and the things you realised you could do fed into the play pattern, and you realised, oh, this is an opportunity that we've got, and that you took advantage of?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot, right? We really wanted to make it responsive and dynamic, that the toy is reacting to how you move it. And of course, that's a perfect fit where you have sensors like accelerometer that can actually track how you're moving it, how fast you're moving it with the responsiveness. And as Regan mentioned before, it's also awareness of, 2 bricks. So we have a magnetic system inside that actually knows how far away they are. And also they know if they facing each other or different kind of orientations. And of course, it opens a lot of different play possibilities because suddenly, you can do like racing, for example, or so many different types of play, right? Just if bricks know where, they are in accordance to each other.
And I think, especially when we're talking about the magnetic sensing, that technology is really hard to prototype, right? There's not much out there at this scale that you can actually get the feel of that without the technology being there. So I think, it's even to this day, it's still a journey of us, the technology is out there now, we've got it all working, now we can really see all the potential. Whereas before it was kind of a bit of guessing, a bit here and there, but now it's all right, we can actually see this breadth of what the play could be.
Yeah, because in the beginning we had nothing to prototype with, right? There was no brick, there was nothing. So we were using different kind of off-shelf technologies like Arduino boards or
Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah, Bluetooth speakers that we would hide under the table, and kids was like, where is this sound coming from, And it's fine, we were not trying to hide too much. If they want to know, we would tell them because it was a prototype. So we're not trying to this is the magical trick. We were no, we were quite honest, right? If they really want to know, sure, we will show them and explain, because otherwise they will keep, focusing on that thing, right?
Because I guess the purpose of it at that point is just to see how the children are responding to the ideas that you're going to execute rather than, the final form of thing.
Yeah.
And again, so thinking about that time when you have these sort of cobbled together prototypes and things, does it require kind of a leap of imagination from you guys and your colleagues when you're thinking, okay, this is what this play idea will be, even if right now we're having to fill in a gap with our minds?
We were doing, for example, video prototyping, meaning that we will record and sometimes we would voice over. So I would do beep 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 psh, 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 beep 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 beep. And in early days we would stick as stickers, kind of system hand, kind of invisible hand, and we would do something, to kind of communicate also on videos or together with colleagues, right? Yeah, it was very fast and dirty, again, because, prototyping was not as easy as now, with the real thing.
And I think you're also shaping the vision as you go, right? You kind of know where you're going, but at the same time, you want to be open because, you want to see the patterns of kids and what they do, right? So as kids start to play with it, as it starts to develop, you can move the target slightly to allow for the feedback that you get from kids. Yeah, but I think the vision is, it's always, it's difficult to keep that as you're going. But I think at the same time, the way that we work is very much the goalpost is shifting. So just knowing that everyone is kind of aligned on that.
Yeah, for example, in the beginning we were working with pre-recorded sounds, right? We were having custom apps that we would press the buttons, look what kid is doing, and then okay, now explosion, now this thing, now that thing, right? But then of course we discovered that no, we actually want a dynamic sound, the sound that is reactive. So that's why we have synthesizers inside, the brick is actually making the sound while you're playing.
And you've kind of touched on this a few times, is the fact that you were exploring as you went, you were shifting the goalpost to find what this would be. Do you remember the point at which the kind of vision coalesced and became kind of more defined, and when you knew, right, okay, this is the play offering that we think we're going to bring?
Well, I would say we started already with some vision, right?
Yeah.
There was a huge research with kids, and we were looking into what kind of needs kids have, and that's where the idea came from. And from the start there was already a basis of okay, we want, responsive toys, we want, provide agency to kids. But then of course over the time it was kind of developing into more and more concrete shapes, and forms.
Yeah, I don't remember a clear a clear moment, but I think it's just clarification over time, right? But I think a lot of it is about playing with prototypes and seeing how it feels. And then over time you're like, okay, now I start to get it. Now we all start to go in like the same direction. But I think for us, it's all about playing with it and seeing if what we're describing or what we're thinking actually matches the feeling as we're playing with it as well.
And when you got the first actual prototype smart brick that was the right size and everything, do you kind of remember what that moment was like and what opportunities that opened up?
So there was like parallel tracks. There was production prototypes that, you know, people like Cambridge Consultant, our partners, they were developing, right? Like looking into how really shrink all the technologies and how make the real thing. But in the design department, we were also designing like a platform for just prototyping, right? So, for example, we have this TBP brick, test brick platform. So it was a little bit bigger than this higher brick, with not all the features, but at least with the core ones features. Yeah, so, and that brick was also went through iterations and development and again, iterations. But yeah, I guess that was a magical moment when suddenly we don't need to have, you know, like a little brick with the speaker and a little brick with something else and a little brick with the accelerometer, but everything was like coming together in one thing.
Yeah, and so I mostly work 5-10 years in the future. So to be honest, I almost saw this the same time as everyone here.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm not really so much involved in production stuff. But I think, you know, when I did see it for the first time, it was kind of like, whoa, this is like, you know, it's all here. It's not, you know, me on the computer controlling things or checking if it's all working. It's like, it's all packaged in there. So I think seeing that was like a pretty crazy moment. Like that feeling of like, oh man, this is all built up to this thing that is now, you know, consumer quality, and it's like, it just works straight out of the box. Like it's a pretty huge step.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if you talk about like production quality bricks, then I remember two moments. One was EVT, engineering validation test.
Yeah.
It was in a different color, and just like seeing it for real and holding it was like one moment. And then of course, when we got the real thing from production, in black color. And I remember it was a very emotional moment for me personally, you know, to get it and like, oh my God, this is happening. This is it.
And I think one of the crazy things is like, over the 5 or 6 years, this was always the target size, right? And there's not many products where it actually gets to that final size, you know, like we'd seen a lot of prototypes, a lot bigger, but the fact that it was always the size, and at the end we're like, this is the size it'll be, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was quite important to have the size because it's like one of the most used in different models bricks. 2x4, very iconic, but also very generic. So you can like place it in so many models and so many toys. So we really wanted to make sure that, you know, kids and adults could use it in their builds. So it's not like bulky, it's not, you know, it's still in the system, right? That you can just place in any model you want.
And now that it is in these sets, like you've touched on so many tantalizing things about where it could go in the future, but what are your personal favorite things that the Smart Brick does in these Star Wars sets at the beginning?
I think battle, you know, when the two spaceships, they could sense each other, right? And shoot at each other. And then they could get like hits, you know? Oh, shake to wake. So that was always like very magical for me personally. Can't wait to play with my nephew.
Yeah, the battle play, right? I think is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the Jedi fighting. Like, I think it's pretty cool. I also like, you know, you can take this off and just kind of just play around as well, like more of third-person role play. Yeah, I really like the creatures as well. The Dewback.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's exciting if you think of that as a platform. You know, this is just the beginning of what creatures could be. And I think it's really cool that we have that in there, and it's showing what we could end up playing with. But yeah, the battles are They're pretty fun. And also this, you don't need a smart minifigure as well. Like you could do this with a normal minifigure. Just adds the extra layers with the smart
Also,
figs.
you can detach those arms and like play like this if you want.
The dark side one. There we go.
Chuck that back. Oh, perfect.